So I've got Matt Donnelly here. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you're a prolific actor, stand-up, not stand-up comic, improvisational.
I barely
comic?
act anymore, but keep going.
Yeah, okay. Improvisational comic.
Yes.
Podcaster.
Yeah.
Magician.
Yes.
Bodybuilder, philanthropist.
Nope.
Playboy.
No.
None of that. Okay. I'm gonna do my best to keep up with you comedically, and I'm just so daunted at the thought.
Oh, I don't think. Yeah, that's not. Okay, let go of that notion.
Yeah, because I'll lose.
Well, you're probably gonna ask me serious questions, and it won't be funny.
Okay. Yeah. Before we jump into the podcasting thing, which is what not everybody, but a lot of our listeners are watching this for.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot to learn from you in podcasting because you crush it in some areas that almost nobody does.
Well, we should. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Let's get into it. Yeah.
But let's talk about improv for a second.
Yeah.
Because you said something on Penn Sunday School that I had to text you about because I was so curious.
Yeah.
And that was you mentioned something called pimping.
Yes.
And I thought that really applies to holding a good conversation.
It can. Yeah. I mean, I guess the term is maybe a little offensive.
Maybe. Nowadays, everything's a little offensive.
But basically in improv, like you agree, like you're taught in improv to not ask a lot of questions. You're taught to make things into statements. And because you're co-creating, you're entering an improvisational space, we're entering a nothing space and creating something. And so if you and I are doing an improv scene, there's kind of an agreement that we're going to co-create with equal footing as best we can, right? And so pimping is a direct, purposeful betrayal of that agreement. So basically, you and I are going to do an improv scene. I'm going to just make you go like, and go ahead. You have that letter in your pocket. Go ahead, just take it out and read the letter, please. Meaning that like I'm going to make you overcreate while I sit back. And
Gotcha.
It's done in a very like busting chops kind of camaraderie kind of way. But it's like a way to it's a way for me to mess with you.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense because I typed it into ChatGPT as I type everything into ChatGPT, and it came back and said something around like making their life difficult by like, oh, and now Matt is going to show us that as an interpretive dance.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like if you were to do it by accident, then yes, you'd be a bad improviser. But yes, it is like I make you dance, I make you make up a poem, I make you do something, and I'm looking at you like, haha, I'm messing with you. Like I remember we were doing a show in New York, and our buddy Steve was coming from Jersey, and he was stuck in traffic, and we didn't know if he was going to make the show. He was so frustrated, and we decided we were going to mess with him by pimping him to start off every scene. So we just did scene after scene where like basically like I'd start a brand new scene and go like, go on, you were saying, and just make them start talking.
Because that's how you described it on Penn's Sunday School.
Yes.
That you just said like, go on. And, I was like, that's probably a good just thing to consider during the podcast to keep your guests rolling.
Oh, I mean, certainly if you are interviewing someone and you want to make that guest less self-conscious, certainly being struck by that information and saying, hey, tell me more about that is a good thing and not a pimping situation. Basically, in improv, the audience is in on it. You're not doing it covertly. You're doing it overtly. And sometimes it was like a good thing for, I've done a lot of improv shows, and I've done a lot of improv shows for very small amounts of people. So sometimes it's just to get a charge in the room. Like we're trying to create space and who we are and where we are, and the energy just isn't awesome.
Do any of the improv skills translate over to, the podcasts that you do, some of them are incredibly improv based.
Yes. Mattingly's Ice Cream Social is my improv partner, and what we call do bits. And yeah, we improvise as much as possible.
It's also my go-to podcast when I equate it to like going to the gym and you work out and you're like exhausted, and then there's like stretching where it's like nice and relaxing and like takes you back out of it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like your podcast is like when there's all these things that are saying like, here's what's going on in politics, and here's this, and here's this, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna tune into Ice Cream Social.
Yeah. And seltzer.
And seltzer.
Get some ice cream seltzer as well.
These Invisaligns, jeez.
So yeah, yes, I believe Penn Sunday School has evolved to this, but Matt and Mattingly's Ice Cream Social was directly, it is our MO. Preaching fun is what we say. And preachingfun.com is where you can go to support us. And that's because, yeah, like I think we're bombarded, and I have this attitude about performing as a magician as well. I think we're bombarded with the news. I think we're bombarded with being told things are important. And I give you credit, whoever you are, listener, that you listen to other things besides us to get that information, to get that intel, or to figure out how you're going to digest it, whether you're, reading the Wall Street Journal or watching John Oliver or whatever. There's plenty of services out there for you to take in the bombardment of events that a lot of companies profit by shouting, this is the most important thing ever right now. So yeah, I think I consider Matt and Mattingly's Ice Cream Social and Penn Sunday School to kind of be a break from that. So even if Penn and I, because Penn's a very intelligent human being and people want to hear what he has to say, whereas Paul and I aren't, and people don't want to hear what we have to say.
That's why they tune into your podcast.
No, about world events. I think Penn is considered, Penn Jillette has a cultural impact. And so when he wants to speak about cultural events, I think people do want to hear from him.
He gets me riled up sometimes.
Of course, yeah, because his whole thing is to have a unique space. Whether it's in magic or talking about anything. He wants to have a very specific thing. But that's why I love doing the podcast with him, because if we veer into modern events, we're not going to take on the whole thing. We're going to address something very specific about one specific interaction, one specific news point, and kind of kick that on for a little bit and move on. And I like that.
In that world, within the Penn Sunday School one, you're kind of sidekick-ish.
Yes, I have very different roles in the two pods. For sure. And then I have a secret magic podcast, but no one cares about that.
It's a secret.
It's a secret.
You'd think there's a marketing problem in the fact that it's a secret.
I like doing a podcast for just 500 people.
I know a lot of podcasters have been going for a long time that haven't hit 500 people.
Well, at least for me, it's a niche.
Yeah.
No, wait, what was the original thing we were talking about?
I'm curious about
different roles.
Yeah,
yes.
Different roles within shows and how you categorize those, how you parse that out.
Yeah, I'm a sidekick on Penn Sunday School. I mean, there are times where I've gotten less self-conscious because we've been doing it for so long. But if Penn were to suddenly dig in about something I'm doing in my life on Penn Sunday School, I get very self-conscious because I'm like, nobody's listening to this show to hear about my life. They want to hear about Penn's. So I try very hard to kick it back to him. And I consider my job to put Penn in his most likable and playful space. And so I really just do my best to kind of do that. I mean, the truth is I started as a substitute host on that show. Originally, Michael Godot was the host of that show before he moved. And then we both were hosts of that show. So in that scenario, I was a third host. And so that's it was what I call slugging percentage. My job is just to hop in and try to take a big swing.
And now you're winning
and
through
then
attrition.
Go away. Yes. Yeah. And so I think
if only that pesky Penn guy would get out of the way.
I think on that show, my job is to hop in and be funny or set Penn up to be very funny and then back out.
Is there an art to setting up somebody else?
You get to know them. I also write, right? So it's about getting to know the voices of that. And if you just get in a certain rhythm, I would consider it, I think everyone would relate to, you have a friend who has a funny story and then you're hanging out with new friends for the first time. Part of your brain might be like, oh, I hope he tells the blank story to my new friends because the story crushes, right? So I don't think it's that formal of a skill, more that I know I've seen Penn hold court so many times and I was around Penn off air holding court so many times. And I just loved when he got going, right? And so it's just that energy. I don't think it's necessarily a skillful thing as much as just I know my friend's one of the greatest talkers in the world. And so it's Sunday afternoon after doing a weekend of shows, so I just have to make sure I try to wake him up a little bit.
I shot a little bit of content for a tour that they were putting on, and he blew me away as far as what he could do with a prompter.
He's remarkably skilled,
really impressive. You wouldn't think it because you think this giant oaf that's just kind of loud, and then I've set up enough people on prompters to see how hard it is, and he was crazy good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've worked on numerous projects with Penn and Teller, and going over lines with Penn, he memorizes things so quickly. He takes notes, digests notes so quickly. What he does on Penn and Teller Fool Us, I mean, he has multiple voices in his ear. And so that little part where they huddle up and talk to each other, not only did they try to bust the trick, but they're also writing how that segment's going to go and how that bus is going to go into commercial. And so he's on top of all that. I mean, he's remarkable at his ability to handle multiple inputs while accomplishing things fluidly on a camera.
Yeah, they're so skilled. They've been around for so long.
Yeah.
On that same shoot, Teller walked up to me and was just like, "Do you think there should be like lights on that thing over there?" And in my head, I'm just like, "There definitely needs to be lights on the thing over there. He knows what he's talking about. Do not disregard what he's saying."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got the sidekick thing, and then when you're primary host, although Ice Cream Social, you're kind of co-hosting almost with everybody. It feels like there's a lot of bouncing around the room there.
That's all we want to do. Is even people ask me what it's about, because it used to be about like kind of Vegas-y, insidery things, but now my partner lives in Pittsburgh, and then I do a lot of things outside of Vegas as well, where we both used to always be parts of the Vegas audition scene and new project scene. And Vegas entertainment's changed dramatically in terms of when and how they use local talent. That just and our lives evolving. It just didn't. We've been going on for more than 10 years, so we really just shoot the breeze and hope something comes up that we can bat around. My analogy is like, when you're a kid, you play like keep the balloon off the ground.
Yeah.
Like basically it's like someone needs to put a balloon up in the air. We all need to tap it. And then once we get comfortable with that, someone needs to take a big hit and make the other person really run for it.
That's great.
And so that's basically what I feel like all we're doing is we all just live our weeks and we try to write down little things. And it's funny because like life events versus like little things, it's like on that podcast, for instance, at the time of this recording, I'm in the middle of doing a brand new comedy tour that gives shockingly very little to the podcast. Like they want the update on it. I update people on it. It's going good. There's no story there. Whereas if I can't figure out how to put hubcaps on my car after I get my oil changed and I embarrassingly have to ask a mechanic to help me put that takes up like a half hour.
Do you take a note, like when these events are happening in your life, you're like, this is probably something I could talk about?
In both podcasts, I keep notes on what I can possibly talk about. I'm never sure about what will work and what won't. I never know what will get my co-host going.
Has Ice Cream Social been more difficult with remote recordings?
I think not as much as people might think, for two reasons. One is that everybody went remote 4 years ago. And so that kind of pacing and that kind of audio quality, everyone adjusted to that in 2020 because we all had to. So the bar is there. And so going from there, and then we purchased a software called Opal, which takes away the lag time between remote recording and allows the most important part, which is being able to cut each other off. Because when you're doing a comedy podcast, it's the ability to talk at the same time or cut each other off is vital to doing bits.
So the software looks at like the spacing within wording and
takes away the lags. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it allows us to talk over each other.
But there's no weird. Are you guys using Riverside?
No. So Riverside became frustrating because Riverside half eliminated that element. Like it kind of allowed talkovers and it kind of took away the lag. But it actually, I don't know if it was like an uncanny valley thing. I don't have any good explanation for it. But ultimately, we found Riverside frustrating.
What do you use?
We do Zoom primarily, and then we have Opal's just its own direct audio channel. So we use Zoom so we can see each other, and the Opal allows us to talk over each other. So the video may be like a second, well, not even a second, whatever that lag time is behind. But when you're doing a podcast and you're wearing cans, the audio is dominant. So the Zoom's just there so we can definitely see each other, but it's almost like a backup.
Huh. And your audience primarily audio versus video?
Yes, we barely do video. We're going to try to actually revamp our studio to make it more friendly because we do have a good Twitch account and our audience likes Twitch. But we're dinosaurs. I mean, we've been doing this for 10 years, so we're so used to being audio only and focusing on that.
Audio still seems to win. People have a hard time believing me when I tell them that.
Well, podcasting is you're dealing with a totally different place in people's lives. I think that's where I am enthused and passionate about podcasting. Is like we're not competing with Netflix, we're not competing with Hulu or Max or anything like that. Like we're whether or not you want company, we're competing with music. Whether or not you want company, walking your dog, going to the gym, doing dishes, driving to work or from work. That's where we're living, and that's where podcasts' primarily purpose is dominant. So I understand the video thing because there are certain lifestyles where people just use YouTube or Twitch as the same reason people might play music while they do other things. So even if you are doing video stuff, it's still remarkably passive what you're providing, for them. You're still a voice in the head more than you are something they're watching.
Where does this all fall within media? Media used to be like a centralized thing, and it's become this decentralized thing. And I'm also fascinated from your perspective because you're performing in not only current media, which I'd say is podcasting,
yes,
but you're also and kind of mainstream media where you're looking at like Fool Us and you're doing the writing and stuff there. But then you also have like truly retro stuff where you're a live performer on stage. Which is, that should precede it, right?
I started as a live performer. I think even when I was trying to pursue acting and writing, I think I still always just wanted to be a live performer. I relate to someone I knew back in the New York improv scene, Ben Schwartz, who's now touring doing like live improv at like 2,000-seat theaters.
Oh, wow.
The guy, does things on Parks and Rec, a couple of Showtime shows and voices, Sonic the Hedgehog and DuckTales. And what does he do with his fame? He takes out his friends that he used to improvise with and does improv. And I think I always just wanted to do that. I think growing up I was not jealous of. That's not the right word. I coveted. I wanted to be Robin Williams, right? Like, not that I could do his style of comedy, but Robin Williams could go anywhere in the country and they go, oh my God, Robin Williams is here. And they would just let him go on stage and improvise with people, let him go on stage and do time at a stand-up club. And that to me just felt like the coolest privilege in the world. And so I think when I was young, I was really trying to be like a sitcom actor. And I thought if I was famous enough on a sitcom, then I could do improv everywhere I wanted to do it. And, spoiler, that never happened. So suddenly I found myself trying out comedy magic, and then that went very well for me. And now I'm going all over the country all the time doing comedy magic, doing exactly what I wanted to do. There's nothing more powerful than live performance. And in fact, the more media gets everywhere, I think the more it's such a treat to just be in a room and watch something live. And for magic, I think it's really nice because there is so much technology out there. So people are doing very simple things with simple objects that aren't digital, that aren't electronic, and creating just a really cool thing where we're messing with our senses of reality in a fun way. I think that's such a remarkable treat. I think that's such a great time out from the things in life. Because I think beyond us trying to find entertainment in media, I think there's this voice of like, keep up in our heads. Like, I think technology is evolving so quickly, and so many people are taking stabs at things, and now like anyone can fly things into space. Like, I think it's just really hard to feel like you're keeping up with everything. And so I think a magic show or a comedy show is just a really good way to kind of go, well, I think that's what comedy's whole purpose is to actually make you forgive yourself. I think that's what comedy is.
So it's like a repurposing of, back in the day, they would go to see vaudeville because there was no other alternative, and
Right.
now it's turned into like an alternative experience that TV doesn't give you.
Well, podcasting and entertainment is a service. It's a service, and I think that's the biggest mistake that people make. I know trying to get into podcasting is not understanding that. They think Joe Rogan is famous. I want to be Joe Rogan, right? I wanted to pursue fame in TV and movies. I can't, but I'll turn to podcasting, and that'll scratch that itch for me, and I will then say I am this person. And I think the biggest change that happened to me happened with live entertainment, but that happened to me with improv when I was trying to be like the best in New York or whatever. And I was on all the great shows and the big teams, and just, gosh, did no one care. No one cared. And then it really hit me. I ended up flipping out, got depressed, moved to an island for a while, came back. And when I realized that what I'm doing is a service to people, and especially New York City, where you have like literally thousands of options of what to do with your time at any time during the day, the fact that we were spending time in front of me to have me make up stuff on the spot, boy, that was a cool compliment. And I owed them the service of creating entertainment for them, really making them laugh and making them forget about their troubles for a half hour.
So true. I've had some problems with my dad. He had a stroke and everything, and your show was what I tuned into. And I think I mentioned it to you at one point, and you're like, that's the promise.
That's the highest compliment we get is yes. And especially when we stayed consistent through the pandemic, I think that really meant a lot to people. And so, yes, the highest compliment is I was going through blank, and I listened to you guys, and I just forgot about life for a little bit. That's all you need. I mean, not that you want to fully escape, but a timeout, a little roadside stop, a little gas and use the restroom before you get back into it, right? I think that's the coolest thing we could provide.
The Ice Cream Social is a weird show in the fact that if somebody were to tune into it right now, not knowing the whole journey that you guys have been on, they would look at it and they'd say, this is an impossible show to build because it's so based off of your audience interacting with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, what I learned from improv is, there are improv theaters everywhere across the country, and they don't exist because everyone thinks they're going to get on Saturday Night Live. Improv's roots are in community building and confidence building. Not to be so nerdy, but, we've all heard of Second City, right? And that was created by a guy named Paul Sills. His mother, Viola Spolin, is the person who wrote the book Improvisation for the Theater. And she was employed post-Great Depression in the Works Programs for Artists, the WPA. And she would go into work camps and small communities and work with people using improv games to make people better communicators and build confidence in people. So the foundation of improv comedy is in community building and making people feel awesome and heard and confident, right? So all these theaters all around the country exist because that's what they do. They help their communities. There are all these people who are, maybe they're real estate agents, maybe they're bartenders, maybe whatever, and they feel like they're funny, and they take some improv classes, and they get to go out on the weekends and either see shows and do their class shows, and just a few times in their lives feel like they got up on stage and were funny. Like, that's a really huge gift to give to people. And it's a huge confidence builder off the stage. It makes you a better listener, storyteller, interactor, flirter, it just helps, right? Improv, the very nature of it. And so I find most people who run improv theaters to have a very thankless job. I think anything where your product is you sell things for $5 to $10, in hopes that 50 people show up, I think you're not going to get rich, right? And so everyone who runs those things, God bless them. I didn't want to do that for myself. I think I did some real soul searching on it, opening an improv theater here in Vegas. I think I did some real soul searching on it, and I found maybe I wouldn't be that happy doing it. And so what I found with a podcast was I was a huge podcast listener before I was a podcaster. I was very lucky in that one I started with Penn Jillette. So that's a huge bit of luck there. 2, right around the time we started Ice Cream Social 10 years ago, everyone was saying podcasts were over. It was like Mark Maron and Adam Carolla, they peaked, and sure, Joe Rogan's kind of doing his thing, but who knows what will happen there. And we were basically saying, like, all the big contracts, all the big money, it's gone. And I saw it as the same thing as improv comedy. I saw it as a service. And I saw it as like where that space of that keeping someone company while they are stuck in their car. And I basically was like, no, I don't have enough of those. Like, for me, I'm a big podcast listener. I don't even have enough of those. And so I started Ice Cream Social and went twice a week right away before anyone else did that. And then all of a sudden everybody went to twice a week, And so we were very lucky to be ahead of the curve there, because once everyone caught back up, I don't know how we would have built our audience, but that's how we built our audience.
You just built your audience based on doing quantity.
Yeah, no, saying like we're there for you. Like basically, like you need more. You might have a job where you listen to podcasts all day. It's like we knew we were going to be huge. We knew we couldn't be Mark Maron, or now Joe Rogan. But we knew that if we could find the listener that really needs that much content, that we could make the promise to always be there for them, then we would have very dedicated listeners.
I mean, the mailbag stuff, the games that come through, like, how did these all get built?
That's what makes it a dinosaur, right? Like, 'cause we have now would be 3 different podcasts. We have a Shoot the Breeze about our Vegas Lives podcast, then we answer listener mail and give kind of like, joke bit advice or just listen to people tell crazy stories, and then we do trivia. Now that would be 3 different podcasts, but we were trying to imitate like Howard Stern, and those things were old school radio shows that kept me company when I was growing up in Jersey. And so we just thought we should shape it out. I mean, nobody will tell you if you're starting a podcast now to make it 90 minutes long.
It's true.
And then we would have guests, we say. It's 90 minutes, but you don't have to stick around for the whole thing. Just tell us in advance, and we'll wrap up the interview and get you out of there. But then we say, but we're going to answer listener mail and I'm going to do trivia. And most of the time the guests go like, oh, that sounds fun. And it's like, oh, I get to spend some time on air without the ray of sunshine being on me. That means they get to hop in and do bits and joke around and do things more passively. That it seems more fun for them.
How did listener mail even get started? Because without listeners actually sending stuff in, you don't create that perpetual cycle of them doing it more.
Oh, that's true. No, that was definitely about like, again, I was a podcast listener before a podcaster, and there's a self-consciousness about it being a one-way relationship. I basically wanted my listeners to feel heard and seen. So when we first started, I just was like, yeah, write in, talk to us about anything. We want to know who you are. And it really helped us kind of picture who we're talking to.
So you asked them?
Yeah, right off the bat, I asked them. And, I talked about launching it on Penn Sunday School and tried to develop things from there. I think from there I started kind of facilitating things through just my own social media pages to get people who were going to write in to listen to. So Twitter was big then and and passive and nice.
Sure. Any social media network.
And then one of the smartest things we did was we started a social media accounts for our podcast only, which is something someone asked and I just said, okay. And I was so surprised at how much that really helped when they thought they weren't talking directly to us, but just talking to the entity that was us. People opened up a lot more.
Oh.
And then we had a policy running. We gave multiple people access to our Twitter account and told our listeners multiple people are running the account. So you don't even know who you're doing when you mention us, right? And then we said, if anyone, basically always like any post that's saying something, as long as it's not negative, like just recognize them. If they're interacting with us, just make them feel seen. So like and favorite every post that comes our way. If it seems like it's promoting conversation in any way, retweet it. If it's not up to us or about us. If they're just bring up something from the show, and we feel like other people might chime in on it, retweet it. Just get it back out there. And so it was just about like, can we get our listeners to talk to each other? And if that happens, then we're building a community and we're not just making people fanboy us, right? We never say the word fan. We always say listener. We give people credit for, even if you're really into us, I bet you're into a lot of things. So calling you a fan kind of can be reductive. So we never say fan. We always say listener. We always, or say scoop, which is the member of the community, right? And we pride ourselves on just making sure our listeners are kind of interacting with each other and becoming friends with each other.
Where did the scoop name thing come from? And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, the listeners have their own names that they've all kind of adopted.
Yeah, that all evolved quickly, but that was just full credit to my podcast partner, Paul Mattingly, just said we should name our listeners something. He was much more of a fan type of person. I mean that by like, I like sports teams and I like movies, but I never consider myself good at being a fan of stuff. Like I love Springsteen. I would fail in a Springsteen trivia contest. I'm just not good at knowing things. But my buddy Paul is a Star Trek, Star Wars, Neon, Evangelion, all this other stuff. He's just good at it. And so he knows communities. He knows nerd communities. And I mean that in a positive way, not in an insulting way. He knows nerd communities and said we need a name. And he threw out Scoop as right away.
Yeah, you guys have really embraced actually your differences within that. It comes across very clear that like he's the guy that's going to know Star Trek. You're the guy that's going to know sports.
Yeah. And I think that was originally actually what we thought about. We thought about calling it jock versus nerd. And thank God we didn't, because once I had kids, I became a terrible jock. I'm still I'm a big basketball guy, but I'm not on top of all the sports stories the way I used to be.
So all the social media stuff you did to build community, is that the entirety of what you guys have used to market your show?
Yeah, because I find nothing else works.
Wow.
We've tried a bunch of stuff.
What have you tried?
We tried an ad campaign where we said life sucks less with ICS, and we showed people in work environments. We basically tried to picture what work environments our listeners would be in, listening to us, and we showed before and after pictures where we just showed basically the same picture but like a slight smile and headphones on. And that our listeners like that at all. But and we've tried blatant internet marketing, boosting posts and trying things like that. We've bought in. That was a waste of money. We bought in like a huge one of those like internet sales funnel, things where we try to follow all their steps to building your business and all this other stuff. And I think it's okay to be a niche community, and we're a niche community. And so the only way those grow is when people in that community want to welcome other people into that community.
I feel like you steer into it with things like the obelisk scheme and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, well, even that was trying to embrace embrace our failings. So the obelisk scheme, as we said, instead of trying to tell 5 people about our podcast, just tell one person, because telling 5 people is a pyramid scheme. Pyramid schemes are evil. So we're doing an obelisk scheme where we go 1-to-1. But even that, telling people to tell one person, it's an easier directive, right? But it's also more powerful.
And it's also funny. Like,
oh yeah.
It's like this weird thing where you've attached like the humor of the show into how ridiculous marketing campaigns are, but in making light of how ridiculous marketing campaigns are, you've created a marketing campaign.
Oh, totally. Like, yes, we want to be funny, right? Like, so the Best of Vegas Awards just came up for Las Vegas Weekly, and we went through the nominations, and we partnered with our friend Piff the Magic Dragon. We want him to win Best headliner, Best Magician, Best Comedian. We want to win Best Podcast. But then we picked, we scrolled down and we saw there was a thing for Best Patio, and that made us really laugh. And we thought our listeners aren't rallying our listeners to just vote us for Best Of is fine, but rallying our listeners to also vote Jacob's Backyard as Best Patio, he's our audio guy. And he does have a spectacular patio. We thought it'd be really funny to like rally people to do that. And so like if our listeners can not only help us but accomplish something funny, like that's awesome. That's the big win for all of us. I think it's just funnier that way.
In your magic career, I was talking about you a couple of days ago behind your back, because that's how I talk.
Fair
about
enough.
You. And it was Magic Friends. They're all coming into town for a convention this year.
Mm-hmm.
And they said like his growth within magic is unprecedented. and we got into this discussion around like, well, like boys normally start when they're like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Girls will come in at a later point.
Yeah.
And they're like, Matt is the guy that came in at a later point already with a skill set and just decimated everybody that's been working so hard. How do you feel about taking people's dreams from them?
Well, I don't think of it as in that framing. Look, I was around a lot of people in New York who became very successful, and I was right next to them on those stages, and I was right next to them at those auditions, and things just never broke for me the way it broke for my friends. I was on the radar for Saturday Night Live. I was on the radar for all these other things. I got to do Wayne Brady's show here in town, but then he gave a game show and he closed his show. I was really in the spot. So I don't bring that up to build a sympathy. I bring it up to know, I know what it's like to try very hard and have nothing break for you. I get that. And so I do understand how crazy and remarkable my break in magic has been. It's not something I take lightly. It's not something I fail to understand. I literally did a magic show where I failed, and then a Magic Dragon took me on the road with him for 2 years. I have the input and direction of Penn and Teller into how I conduct my career, not just how I do the magic tricks, but how I go about my career. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of those magicians aren't thinking about, that they should be even more jealous of. I think Penn was very smart, and he told me things like, don't get caught up in cards. You're starting way too late, and there are 12-year-olds who can deal seconds, middles, bottoms, thirds, and you'll never get there, and you'll spend too much time going after it. And with that kind of came the idea that it's not merit-based. We don't reward magicians from the most skilled on down. It's an entertainment. And so I know that I'm a very funny person, so I create all of my routines around something that has to be a guilty pleasured comedy thing for me. And I think that's where my huge advantage is. I think you hear the phrase among magicians where they say like, oh, this gets laughs and that gets laughs. And when I write for the magicians or consult for the magicians or chime in with my friends, I go, that's a really low bar. Get laughs is low bar. Is it a guilty pleasure for you to say this? do you just can't wait till you can do this bit? Because that's where the best comedy is where you're like, oh boy, I get to clobber him over the head with this. And so if you're working on something and it's not hitting that bar, then keep working. Gets laughs and then you stop, you're doing yourself a gigantic disservice. So, I came into magic with thousands and thousands of shows of me in front of all kinds of audiences in different environments under my belt. And why Piff loved taking me to comedy clubs is because I took on every audience like a lion tamer and tried to flood out all of the drunks, all of the pesky people, and handled them so that his crowd was settled before I brought out the magic dragon for them, right? So, I think what's been great about magic is there's so many different kinds of magic. There's so many different ways to do it. And it's for some reason an attractive thing now more than ever. It's just super popular. The analogy is, I think YouTube, for as much as magicians can lament YouTube and exposure videos and all these other things, I laugh because I think about like casinos. If you count cards at a blackjack table, they'll take you out and curb stomp you and ban you from the casino. But they also sell books on how to count cards in the lobby. And so, I think of that as an analogy to why magic is so popular right now, is that like enough people know a little bit about magic that it's more interesting to them than ever before. And sure, we're worried about them becoming card counters that need to be brought up to the curb and stomped. But the majority of them are just going to be people who think they know a little bit that they're going to go to the table.
Do you think there's value in the audience understanding the art form? And what I mean by that, whether that's magic, whether that's improv, if somebody reads Tina Fey's book and goes, oh, there's rules to this.
Yeah.
Do they immediately become a better audience member? And if they watch Fool Us and they hear him drop a couple of words, they look it up and they're like, oh, this is what black art means or whatever. Like, do they become a better audience by being more informed? Or
I think so. I mean, I think it's Penn and Teller's gamble. And I think that's what, they started before the internet, and I think the internet has only made it. I mean, think about how many magicians traded on the fact that they might be special or totally remarkably gifted people before the internet.
What do you mean?
Like that they might actually be magical.
Like magicians claimed they were magical?
Yes. Like how many magicians gave an air of like, maybe I'm just a special person who can do special things.
Those are not my favorite magicians.
They're no one's favorite magicians. And now they're basically gone because that marketing doesn't work anymore. Because now we go to the internet and go, what the hell's going on with that guy? And we can find something that tells us what's going on with that guy. So now if you're going to be a working magician, you have to do something else. And part of that's being honest with your audience. Like, I'm doing bits. I'm messing with you. I'm doing arbitrary experiments, and I'm not telling you all the rules. That's what magic is, And so if you talk to the audience where you give them credit for that, then they kind of will laugh at all the dumb things, and they'll be gobsmacked by the impossible results.
It's like being let in on the joke.
Yes.
Bert Kreischer does the machine. They've all heard the routine. They just want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of your skill sets, which ones have informed the next skill set? So it seems like improv has been your foundation, but then you got into podcasting, then you got into, there's so many different things. I'm curious what skills have stacked on the others.
They all help. I think like failing at a lot of things helped. For all the guys who are like, this guy started late and he's successful. I think you don't start magic at 39 years old because everything went well. Because things went good.
I feel like you don't start magic at all because things went, it doesn't matter what time.
Like a common thing, like I work on Fool Us, right? Where I'll talk to most of the magicians because I help the host. And, a lot of magicians like to say, like, I've never done anything else. I started magic when I was 6 and I started getting paid for it when I was 12, and I've never had another job in my life. Well, I've had a lot of jobs. I've done a lot of things. I've worked in maintenance departments of, buildings, bartended for 8 years in an Irish tavern, catering gigs. I was a housekeeper at a resort. I've done a lot of jobs, and that actually helps me relate to a lot of people. So I think like all of my failures have really given me the superpower of being a much more relatable artist.
you come across as really humble with, I mean, just even bringing up all those jobs, and you're not bringing up the glamorous ones, and you've
Yeah.
had glamorous jobs.
Yeah.
But you're not bringing up the glamorous jobs. So there's a level of humility that a lot of people that are on stage, they want to create the facade that what's on stage, that perfect picture. It's just like social media.
No, no. I didn't. The most thing that attracted me to magic is you don't have to be famous to work in magic. In comedy, you have to be famous or work with someone famous, or you have to be somewhere on the tethered line of fame adjacent, to make any real money in comedy. So either you're writing for or opening for someone who is a headliner, or you're trying to become a headliner. But basically, especially in stand-up, all the money's at the top. That's not the case in magic. So what made magic really attractive to me at 39 years old wasn't like, this is my last chance to get famous. What made it attractive to me is like, I have 2 kids, and if I can not be famous and work and provide for them while still being an entertainer and an artist, rather than taking some other kind of job, that'd be awesome. I have a friend who just plays school libraries, plays 200 like a year, just lines them up the libraries, knocks them out, does magic and origami, and he's providing for his family. He's living a good life. He's not even trying to do shows at the Magic Castle. He doesn't want to play any of the games of any kind of magician cool kids club. He's out, and he's doing great, and he's living his life, and he's loving his life, And I think, I can't table hop at a fancy restaurant doing improv. I can't, and the truth is I can't even do that much improv at birthday parties, and I can't do that much improv for corporations. I can do it once in a while, but not a lot. Magic, you can do it a lot. And so I'm just happy that it's like it's a more approachable business model from an artist perspective and working artist perspective than almost any other kind of art.
When you started off in magic, I believe a bunch of crazy top name guys gave you material.
I got 1 trick each from magicians, and I did a Kickstarter where,
as is tradition in the magic world. So that never happens ever to anyone.
I was strategic, right? I mean, it started with Penn Jillette daring me to learn a magic trick. I basically was mouthing off about magicians, and Penn was like, "It's harder than you think. Why don't you try doing 1 trick first before you mouth off about magic?" And I decided to mess with him. Instead of just buying a trick and learning something, off of a website, I went to their mentor because Johnny Thompson was so generous. Johnny Thompson was a very famous magician in the 70s. And then later on in life was a very great teacher and mentor to many magicians, but also was Penn and Teller's magic director, and was on Fool Us as kind of like the judge of sorts for that show. And so I said, Johnny, Penn dared me to learn a trick. Would you teach me a magic trick? And then we can go from there. And then Johnny started inviting me over to his house like every week, and that's the beginning of a very beautiful chapter, right? And so I got to spend a lot of time with him and work with him in his living room, and he would just teach me tricks, and we'd work on stuff. And I just did that all to like impress Penn. But then I was in Las Vegas closed, and I had another show that I was going to write on, but it was like 6 months apart. And I was like, I can't get a good job because I'm definitely going to quit and do this writing job. And bad jobs don't pay enough for me to support my children. So I just put it out in the universe out of a total swing of desperateness, being like, I bet no one wants to mentor a magician. The idea of a magician's apprentice is like a thing we learned from Mickey Mouse. But I was like, I bet a lot of magicians would teach me 1 trick. They'll teach me 1, right? And so I started with Johnny.
Hell of a place to start.
Exactly. And this is where I was strategic, because I knew that the magic person was Teller, but I went to Penn next, being like, Johnny's teaching me 1 trick. I'm going to try to put a show together. Would you teach me 1 trick? And Penn did. And then I went to Teller and said, Teller, I'm trying to put a show together where people are teaching me tricks. Johnny is teaching me a trick. Penn is teaching me a trick. Will you teach me a trick? And Teller said yes. Once Teller said yes, everyone I asked was going to say yes. So like once I said Teller's going to teach me 1, that's all I had to say to everyone else. So Matt King, Piff, Brian Brushwood, Eric Diddleman, and then I had a show.
That's a powerful writing team that no magician has ever harnessed together before.
But the point is, like, people got it. Like I said, I had a lot of failures. I tried to make TV pilots. I tried to make movies. I've tried to make a lot of things, and none of them got remotely successful. None. And then I said, I'm going to do a magic show where 7 magicians teach me 7 tricks. and a lot of people gave me money. And I got to pay myself to learn magic. That's crazy. I get it. What I just said out loud is nuts. It is my first hit.
It's amazing. You know, I want to go down a little. I want to tell you a story about Johnny Thompson because I just love
please.
Johnny Thompson.
Yeah, no, I love Johnny Thompson.
And when he passed, I took it upon myself to put together a video, which they played at his funeral.
Yeah.
And but I was calling people up. I need footage. And all these people kept telling me the same thing that I was thinking to myself, which was every time Johnny Thompson said goodbye to somebody, he said, "I love you." And all these people just kept telling me the last thing he said was, "I love you." And I was just like, man, I thought that was a quirky old man thing. And then when this happens, that guy was playing 3D chess. Like it hit so hard.
No, I don't know. Like I always feel weird saying this because I don't want it to feel like I am trying to gain something from it. But I had the last conversation with him, and before he went down working on Fool Us. And then he was revived, but then intubated.
You had the last conversation.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
He was still like at the hospital, people would talk to him and he would blink yes and no and wave his head and stuff like that. But I had the conversation with him and he walked out the door and walked with Close and unfortunately had an event and fell to the ground. And I was there while they were performing CPR on him. And I was holding his hand and talking to him and that kind of stuff. And it was crazy. It was traumatic, but also it was, I feel lucky that I was still there, so it's a hard thing to kind of process, but we were just joking around. Making jokes. And then he just walked out the door and that's just nuts. But no, I mean, I just met with another magician to work on some props and stuff, and just they had some of Johnny's stuff, and just told me some Johnny stories, and I just was in heaven. I love that man, and he's missed. He's missed by so many magicians. He was so good for magic.
It's also kind of amazing that like the average person, the person watching this that's interested in podcasts, have no idea who this is. But I think that's actually still kind of important in the fact that like one person that might not be this monster superstar. He's not David Copperfield. He's not Tom Cruise. But he, like, through those little moments of interaction and caring for other people, like, you have a massive, massive impact.
Yes.
I think it's beautiful.
It's a true legacy. And that's the thing, people won't know who he is. But go ahead and find some stuff on YouTube and find the great Thompsonian Company and enjoy. Yeah, enjoy awesome. Discovering him. He's so funny.
So you got all of this content from other performers, and I'm curious around whether imitation or... I'm not going to call it theft, but like a lot of podcasters are starting off and they go, I want to do what Joe Rogan's doing.
Right.
And there is something to be said about taking something that works, but there's also something to be said about making something your own or creating something that's brand new. How do you parse those?
There's an exercise people do in like in art classes. Like my brother is an illustrator and an animator. And there's this thing there's an exercise where you take like a great piece of art and you try to repaint it. And the lesson of it is always like it doesn't look exactly alike. And the parts where they're not alike, that's where you are. That's where you are as an artist trying to do that. And so I think you always have to start off imitating the stuff you want to be. I think you always have to start off like there are still even lines in my show that in my head I've written for pen. The way they come out of my mouth sounds different. But the length of the sentence and the sentence structure and all that stuff, it's for pen. And oftentimes you blatantly imitate people that people often don't even see that you're blatantly imitating them because there's still so much that's involved in it or whatever. So theft, influence, inspiration, I think when it comes to podcasting, I think it's pretty hard to. I mean, you couldn't steal Joe Rogan's audience if you tried,
Well, you can try, and you're only going to get a fraction of a percentage.
That's it. And so you have to figure out who you are, but you have to start somewhere. So you're going to start somewhere, and you're going to figure out who you are, and maybe you're more bro-y or less bro-y than Joe Rogan, and you kind of start to find that voice. I think like the rise of like kind of, I think Joe Rogan being the alpha of podcasting and the broiness of YouTube and the way that it's thrived actually really made Ice Cream Social kind of make sure to go the other way, because we are three guys.
You don't consider yourself kind of bro-y with each other?
We are bro with each other in terms of we bust chops, stuff like that. But I don't think I'm very happy with the amount of people in the trans community that listen to our show. I'm very happy with the amount of women that listen to our show. And I think that I think that we have a much more kind of open-minded, inclusive vibe. And I think we're very quick to apologize. I think we're very quick to call out our own errors. I think if other people call us out on stuff, I've had people write us upset, and I say, I will do whatever you want, on air, off air, whatever you like. I'm apologizing to you now. I will try to change that going forward. And if you also want me to do something on air about it, I will do something on air about it. Sometimes they say like, no, this is great. Thank you for listening. I feel heard, and I believe that you'll, do this, that, or the other thing. So, we do our best. I mean, you do a comedy podcast, you're going to step in it from time to time. You're just going to go, you're joking on the fly for, 3 hours a week. You're going to just make the wrong joke sometimes.
I feel like at least you have the buffer of the fact that there's a microphone and the audience isn't immediately across the table from you.
Right.
Like, I feel like probably in your improv shows, you've seen some wild scenarios.
Oh, sure. But people are much more forgiving in a theatrical environment. When you're putting out something when you're putting things out as permanent media, it has a different weight to what you're doing and what you're saying. Especially improv. You literally are saying, I'm going to make this up and throw it away forever. So like it's gone. As soon as it's over, it's gone. So you don't get a lot. Just the fact that it's recorded changes the entire...
I think so. Yeah. There's this thing that the monks would do where they would draw these like sand artwork. Have you ever seen these things?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful things.
Yeah.
And then when they're done, they just wipe them away. And there's something incredible about the impermanence of that.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. I remember, when I was young in the 90s, Beastie Boys Tibetan Freedom concert, they would have those sand artists at the concerts.
It's interesting to think of that in artwork that would be like improv comedy or even like a chef.
Oh, I mean, don't give me the people bring up that exact example when you want to feel important as an improv teacher, you bring up those sand artists.
Okay.
And so when I was young, that felt awesome. It felt kind of punk rock. And
to let something go.
Yeah, that I was like really, really funny. And then it's gone. And I got to start over again from scratch next time I get out there. I really liked it. I always said that the drug of improv isn't being funny. The drug of improv is being consistent. And so like,
that's the drug? That's the joy you get?
To feel like that you can, no matter where you are, and that you can just start from scratch and be good every time. Oh, that's really exciting.
But comedians, they'll work for a year on a set. Then when they actually record and do make it permanent, that actually means that they've now wiped the slate clean. They've got to start over.
Yes.
But in the improv world, the rule is the opposite, with the podcast being the exception.
I mean, as I'm getting older, I don't find the same thrill. I'm very happy to have thousands of episodes under my belt that I can point to and be like, that body of work exists. And same with now being in Comedy Magic, that I have, X, Y, and Z routines that I have really found and hold on to. And even if I'm in a low energy or a bad mood, that if suddenly it clicks in that this thing that I rely on can be relied on, that as I get older, I'm not still feeling punk rock about it. I'm very happy to be building a body of work that can stand up. Yeah.
What mistakes do you see new podcasters make, or existing podcasters make on the regular that you're like, that's an obvious error, but they just haven't figured it out?
I would say that most people think that I'm gonna get blank listeners, I'm gonna get ads, and then I'm good. And they don't know that it's hard to maintain a consistent level of listenership. They don't know that ad providers come and go. And they don't know that I think whether you're looking at, Serial or whatever, that I think they think there's going to be a level of achievement, and then they're going to be there's a point of arrival. I think it's the biggest mistake most people working in any art form make, is that thinking there's a point of arrival. It's a point where you can just step on this part and go, there, now I'm here and now I'm doing it. And not that it's not going to be the same amount of hard work as any entrepreneur or any person with a small business. You're just never going to stop putting out fires and plugging certain things in and putting on a Band-Aid on something and being like, that won't be permanent. And then it's always permanent.
I love that. I love that. It's just like, hey, the race just keeps going.
It just never stops, you know? Like magicians want to be Vegas headliners. Go ahead and talk to a Vegas headliner. It is very week to week, very day to day, the self-esteem of a Vegas headliner and how much tickets they're selling.
It's
such a hard gig. It's a very hard gig.
Yeah. It's amazing. You think, I always thought that. I thought that if I'd have the Vegas show, it was going to lead to like, then I'd have all the money and then I'd have all the like all this stuff. It's like, no. Nothing leads to anything else. You were mentioning advertisers. What have you seen that has been effective and ineffective in monetization strategies?
Well, Patreon was a game changer for a lot of projects, for a lot of people. And the idea that things could just be listener supported. Patreon, like before just asking your listeners for money to keep it going kind of felt a little beggary or whatever, just needy or a sign that you're inept, right? And ads were the way to feel like I'm doing it and my listeners are my listeners. And I think Patreon made it fun and exciting. You're going to give me money and you're going to get the podcast and we're going to do these other fun things for you. We're going to give you rewards, right? And I think the idea of like Patreon turned every episode into a successful Kickstarter. You know, it's basically just a bunch of Kickstarting that's happening all the time instead of doing one big burst. Because that was our plan. We thought we needed celebrity guests when we first started, and that like if we would do a big season, like basically a Kickstarter per season, then we could pay like a publicist and go out to LA and record a bunch of episodes with famous people and then come back. Oh man, it sounds so dumb to say out loud. It's so bad. It's such a bad idea.
Why is it a bad idea?
One is if you get a really good guest, that'll help that episode's ratings. So that immediately puts a crazy amount of pressure on the next one. So now you have to be someone who gets a series of amazing guests. I mean, I keep bringing up Mark Maron because Mark Maron was like the gold standard when I started podcasting. And I say it now, and we say Mark Maron, and your brain goes, oh, yeah. Because at that point, real celebrities just talking real for an hour and just like no holds barred and unfiltered was so crazy that he became the most popular podcaster ever.
He got Obama. He's the first one that ever got a president, right?
Yeah. And he just famously people just shoot the breeze and be very vulnerable in front of him and just say very things that they would never say on a late night talk show. And so that was like unbelievable. But now everyone's doing that, right? And so we even would try to get interesting guests or cool guests or whatever. I remember through a friend early on, we got an interview with Heidi Fleiss. She lived out here. She lived in Pahrump, and she had taken in all these macaws, all these birds that outlived their owners, and she took them all in. And so out in Pahrump, she had turned her home into this like roped up like haven kind of for macaws. And so if we could give her some attention for her trying to take care of those macaws, that she would do an interview.
That sounds nightmarish.
We drove out to it.
You recorded surrounded by macaws?
Mm-hmm. And then I came out of the bathroom and was waiting for me, and I was afraid it was going to eat my Achilles tendon. And it was like this bizarre thing. And we tried to talk to her about her past. And as soon as we got into her past, she got really kind of like upset with us. She just wanted to talk about birds. And but we did our best to do like a really good interview with her. And our listeners didn't give a crap about it. They could care less. They just were like, okay. And so we realized that like them feeling like they're part of a good hang, it took us too long to realize that like that was it. Like you're fly on the wall for funny guys hanging out, right? And so we, from then on, always try to get good guests. We try to have a lot of funny women on, because just to make sure that like we're trying to make up for our lost, we don't naturally provide. In Las Vegas, there's tons of very gifted and funny women, so there's no shortage there. And so, but basically our standard then became like, who will joke around? Who can we have on that we can do bits with, that we can joke around with, and just has a couple of good stories. And I basically say like 2 guests when they said they're going to come on, like anything we need to prep. I go, honestly, whatever like your a couple of good stories about either your gig or whatever, like whatever you would kind of tell your friends to, like, if you're holding court, like just come with those in your back pocket and don't expect to get through them cleanly. Like, we're going to interrupt you. We're going to bat it around. And so we're eventually going to get through your stories. As long as you're cool with that, then that's all you need to know. And that's been our magical recipe, ever since.
How can people join the congregation? That's the wrong one.
It's okay. So Penn Sunday Schools, we call ourselves members of the congregation, and
the churn.
So if you find Mattingly's Ice Cream Social on every podcast feed, you can do it that way. HeyScoops.com. Hey Scoops. We're just shouting at our listeners. HeyScoops.com is where you can find all the info on us. And one of the coolest things we do is we do a thing called Scoop Fest, where we bring all of our listeners that want to come out to Vegas for 3 days at the Orleans, and we just entertain them. We do contests, we do trivia battles, we do multiple shows, and we just basically get all of our Vegas friends to show off for our international audience.
It's awesome, and you're seriously doing yourself. It's at the end of every episode, we try and you can go find this person here. You're seriously messing up if you don't go and check out this podcast. It's that good. It's just great, and it's one of those podcasts also where you gotta give it 5 episodes.
I know, that's the thing. Obviously that makes my stomach hurt, but it's so true. Like, I hate it, but and I've many people who start listening go, I don't even know why I started listening to you. Or they'll say, I don't even know why I kept listening, but then I got to this episode, and then it became the first thing I listened to on my list.
Your format's weird,
yeah.
right? You have a super strange format. It's not this is an interview. It's there might be an interview, but there might be craziness. Who knows?
Yeah, we just want things to go nuts.
Yeah, and people, it takes a second to realize, oh wait, Jeopardy's a normal thing. This is just going to keep happening.
Yes. Yeah, and we have to warm up. It takes we as much as I've tried early on to really try to hit the ground running with episodes, we have to every episode warms up. Yeah. Which is also not the best practice.
It's a wonderful show. It is a wonderful show. Anyways, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you. Okay, we're done.
All right.
You know the last guy who sat in that chair?
Who's that?
Andrew Tate.
Oh, God.
He did a 4-hour interview.
Oh.